You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous. Her loyalty is only to the family she serves, a midwife who will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change. We are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating this space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were
Born wild.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. We're your hosts, Clover,
Sophia. We're like Brady Bunch style. Who's going to go next?
Chelsea is here.
It's choppy. Is that me or is that you guys?
It must be you.
It's you.
It's me.
And that's Leah's introduction.
Fail. We have to restart.
I'm keeping it. Let's keep rolling.
This is like my disorganized podcast nightmare.
We like keeping Clover twitchy. It keeps her up an extra half hour past her bedtime.
Oh gosh.
Let's do
There we go.
introductions. Let's do updates. Who wants to go first? I will. So my update, this is Sophia. My update is we put our house on the market. So if anyone's local and looking to buy in Forestville, come by. My parents just sold their home. Our house is on the market and we are envisioning doing a homestead together. Talked about it for a very long time. And now we're like, let's just make it happen. So my mom manifested a rental right next door to my brother and his brand new baby. And it's on 2 acres. And so we're all going to live together for we're envisioning maybe a year. And then next spring, when houses go on the market, we'll have cash offers and we'll find our dream home. So yeah, that's been my focus, is how to stage a home while children live here still. And it's a nightmare.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, my daughter one night, she was like, "You love the house more than me." Like, temporarily we do, okay?
We love the house because we love you.
Yes, temporarily the house is the most important thing. So so we're picturing it selling in the divine timing. My divine timing would be when my parents unpack all their boxes and then they can give us all their boxes. So so that's kind of our big thing right now. And my son just turned 7 a week or so ago, and that was really fun, and ripped his teeth out with pliers. And I think I already did that update, but so the big move, that's what's happening in my life. What about you, Leah?
Let's see. Well, I did my first New Moon Women's Circle last night, which I think went quite well. If you ladies agree.
Yes, awesome.
Yeah, but what's up with me? I'm very excited for a little break I have coming up in fall. I'm going to Hawaii for 4 days at the beginning of July, and I've never been, so I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm meeting up with my belly buddy hitchhiker and her parents, and so that will be really fun because I haven't seen her since a couple days after she was born. So I'm very excited about that.
So you're saying this, but I don't know if you've ever mentioned this on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So for those who don't know, what do you mean?
I had a baby
belly
for someone else. I decided to have a hitchhiker for 8 months or so, and now she's with her parents. We'll have to do a whole episode where you guys interview me like I'm a big important person.
Yes, let's do it.
About it. But yeah, so I have one mama who I'm waiting on, who will have her baby soon, maybe this week. And then I'm off call for a little chunk of time. So I'm excited about that.
Cool. You'll have to update us when you get back.
I will.
Cool. What about you, Clover?
Yeah, what's up with me? I am like on a little off-call break, which has been really nice. And I've been doing fun things like going surfing and hiking around and letting my phone die and leaving it in random places. And I am feeling like more close to being done than I ever have, which I guess makes sense because I am, moving forward in time. But
Like you mean done with schooling, or what do you mean?
like done with school. Yeah, like done with midwifery school. I like realized somehow that if I kind of just rearrange my class schedules, that I could technically be done in December, which I ultimately decided not to do. I decided to be done more in like the spring of next year, but it felt like, oh, like technically I could finish it all. I'm that close. And being like 6 months away from potentially being able to be done felt really significant to me. And I'm a little bit of a school junkie. Like I love being in school. So part of me today was just like, what's the next school that I'm going to be in? So I'm really interested in starting a lactation consultant training. And so I've been doing some research into that. And yeah, just like working on starting to like put little pieces together for potentially building my own business and kind of doing those like entrepreneurial parts of midwifery, and having your own practice and just kind of like dipping my toes in that, which has been fun. Mostly just like exploring around and looking at other people's websites and doing stuff like that. But yeah, other than that, I've been good. I'm excited. We're going to a breach workshop this upcoming weekend.
Yay.
We're five, all the midwives all together.
I think there's going to be like 8 or 9 of us in one Airbnb. It's going to be
my gosh.
so fun.
Yeah, it's just exciting. I've been really feeling lately like, oh, I really landed in a midwifery community that I really love. And that's been feeling so good because I think in the East Bay where I was before, there's a fantastic midwifery community, but it's really big and it was COVID. So it felt like a little bit discombobulated and feels really nice to be in community with other midwives. So I've been feeling really grateful for that.
That's nice.
Yeah. What about you, Chelsea?
Yeah. What about me? Well, I booked it out of the sauna to come meet with you ladies. So I'm feeling relaxed for that. And I have a pile of basil in my kitchen that I harvested today to make pesto. That's exciting. A little exciting thing.
Do you have a sauna?
No, I have a gym membership that has a sauna.
Okay. I was like, okay, now we're doing skills at Chelsea's house.
Right. Yeah, no, I would have mentioned that sooner than now. No, we don't even have a house here. We have a house sitting gig. Our house isn't even in the country. So I'm lucky to have dirt and a garden. That feels very fortunate.
Yeah.
So, and we've been here now in Sonoma County for 3 weeks, maybe, and I'm feeling grounded and starting to get into a routine with my midwife team, as it were, and feeling really good and excited about that. And I agree, Clover, it does feel, well, for me personally, it feels nice to have community in general. In the work that I've done before, I was the only student, and there were a number of midwives that I worked with, but it's different being the one, and I only worked with one of them at a time. So it's very different than the group practice and then also the group skills, and that there's going to be a pile of everyone in cars and Airbnbs this weekend. And that feels like it integrates more into my being and my life when I have people that I talk to on a regular basis. It's not, I go and have midwifery conversations and then I go to the rest of my life and people think it's strange to talk about vaginas and meconium and bodily fluids and blood, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. I love our little cohort that we've been building. It's really sweet.
It feels good.
Yeah. Leah, what were we talking about? Was it just last night that we were like, you were like, and we should be recording. We always do this where we get on really good tangents and we realize we should be recording.
What was it? We also
Well,
said
you were asking Clover, I think Amber was asking too, like what we felt like we would have done differently
Mhm.
when we were starting out as midwives. I was thinking with your check-in, Clover, about just like when I was, and I'm, constantly doing this, but in the very beginning, like thinking about what I wanted, even like to name my practice and like how I was going to word my website and like I don't know, like what I was going to sort of put as my unique offering, and just starting to think about that. And I know I've had other midwives who are starting out kind of put out into the community, like what words speak to you, like what would make you inspired to like choose a home birth or to work with a midwife or whatever, and just kind of gathering information for that. Yeah, I don't know, just that process. What else are we talking about, Sophia? It was kind of like along those lines, right? Oh, we were talking about when we have sex after babies, but that was my birthday conversation.
that's a whole podcast that we should definitely do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I think we were also talking about partnerships, as maybe we'll have more to update on next time on the podcast, but Leah and I are considering and talking about potential partnership, and because we're always trying to find the balance between what does midwifery sustainability look like without jeopardizing what makes home birth awesome, like continuity of care and like knowing who your team is, and home visits versus office visits, and all the like perks of hiring a home birth midwife, and how can we find the balance to keep it sustainable for us long term and give the people what they want, and so our plan is heading to the Breach conference, which will be many hours in a car. We can talk about all that. So we don't really have
percolating for a while.
Yeah,
I feel like we've been group practice curious since we've known each other almost. I feel like it's been fun with the podcast to whenever we've interviewed midwives, especially one, I don't know, seems like people have dabbled in that, and we've definitely interviewed several midwives who have had small practices and group practices, and just how they've done it with call schedules. And
it's always been 3 midwives, and so in my head I kept thinking, well, I could totally do it with Leah, and we need like one more midwife who is on par with us in terms of like experience and comfortability of like handling emergencies, and can work with students, because in practices with 2, they're usually just a team and they assist each other, and our goal was, how can we get more time off call, on a regular basis. So the partnership would be sweet to assist each other, and we kind of already did that a little bit, but it doesn't give us any off call time. And so that's where a 3rd midwife would come in. But we were saying, how could we potentially make this work with just 2, like for the time being? And it seems like it would only really work with, us having very reliable students who we trust in emergency situations and could be our sole assists, which we both have right now. So yeah, just toying with the idea of like, could we really be off call more often than we are, which is never.
yeah,
more often than never.
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have a panic attack when I get on the plane to Hawaii. It's gonna be unreal.
Yeah,
just like leaving the vicinity.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, that's something
but
I like.
Go ahead.
Oh, I don't know. I was just gonna say I have a new student, which we talked about a little bit. I'll wait till we confirm everything. But when I get back from Hawaii and go back on call, I think I'm going to have a new student who's beginning her birth experience. So I love the idea of having our advanced students, like Nina and Emma and Clover, and then you guys cycle out and maybe you assist us and you're starting your own practices, and then the newer students become advanced students, but just like having it be a cycle where we're building community, so in however many years when you guys have your own practice, we all are still really comfortable with each other and still doing skills and all that stuff. Yeah. It's my bigger dream.
Yeah, exactly. So that everybody is like, has this similar way of practicing, but obviously unique to themselves too, but because that's the big thing is like when you call someone, at least for me, I feel like very protective of my families. And if I'm going to have somebody go to the birth instead of me for whatever reason, I'm sick or whatever, I want to trust that they at least know how I practice and practice similar, so that the clients aren't like, whoa, this is way different than my last experience with Sophia, or, what she said it would be like. And so I know I have that in you, Leah. Yeah, so to just like keep building on that. And when we're doing skills together, I think it does make us more like congruent as a team, even though we will have our own practices. Because there's a couple other midwives who join us for skills. And yeah, it's nice to work together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Leah, what were some of the answers that you had when Clover had asked about regrets? I know one of your big things, not that this was a regret, I think it was actually the opposite, was the timing of children. Clover's ears just twitched. Like as a midwife,
babies.
No, that was good. That was good. But the other thing that we talked about that I felt like was super like interesting was something that Amber was bringing up around like that dilemma that you kind of have as a new midwife, where you have like less boundaries and you have a sense of just taking everyone and taking every client that comes in the door,
mm-hmm.
not necessarily having the same level of discernment of like, this isn't going to be a good fit, and how you balance that. And yeah, that's just been something that I've been thinking about since we talked about that. I was like, oh yeah, it seems so easy I remember that as a doula, like ending up in interviews with clients and being like, totally, yeah, like whatever birth you want, just kind of feeling like you take whatever you can get. And then later being like, oh, like now I feel like I have a really clear idea of what that feels like in my body. But I wonder what that feels like when you're like, now I need to make money. And now I have, whatever 4 or 5 years of school behind me, and I need to like make that worth something. And so there's a little bit more pressure to maybe fill your client load or do.
That's why I've been talking that I want to do this, like not like a midwifery school, but like a mentorship program. My vision is that I can hire my students once they're licensed, if they want, that they have the opportunity to be hired as like a staff midwife, like be on salary, they can use my equipment, and that I am somebody that they can consult with, and I have a thriving practice so that I can get clients for the practice, and that I will assist them so that they always have somebody who's got their back in an emergency, until they feel like they've made a name for themselves in the community, and now they're getting their own clients and they have their money tucked away and they're slowly buying their equipment. Because that was one of the big things. I'm like, okay, I need equipment, which means I need money, which means I need a client. But like, like you are in like this cycle of like, which one comes first? Because like, I can't get a client until I have all my equipment, and it's like, So I was picturing that this could be a little like stepping stone for new midwives while they're like trying to get their name out in the community. And that then it would take things off my plate as I'm getting older, that I can enter into like a more mentorship role.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I think like it's a nice model to like kind of experiment with. I mean, even when I was making that I made like a little float or a little calendar, Leah, today, where I was like, what would it look like if you guys really did switch off call, like, did 3 days and then switched or whatever. And it, like, in my body, it was the same when I worked at a birth center where we had a rotating off-call schedule, and just like knowing that you had off-call time is so crazy to me and feels so good. Like, it just feels like incredible. And I was like, wow, what if you guys had 3 days off a week of call? That would be amazing. And so, like, having that as kind of also a foundation of it, where it's like there's a sustainable model, there's people who can spell each other, there's ways to support new midwives, there's ways to support students, people can get compensated. Like, to me, it's like, okay, that's building a whole model of sustainable midwifery from all the different levels of it. And yeah, I don't know, it's really exciting to me, because it's like, it's sustainable for the midwives, it's sustainable for the new midwives, it's sustainable for the students, and it works kind of for everyone.
Well, like, for example, I was assisting Leah. I was her second at a birth, and she went on the earlier side and then ended up going home. It was one of those like long labors where, you touch in and out. But it was right around like getting close to my son's birthday. And I was like, oh, I thought she would have had her baby. And then I felt all nervous that I was going to like not be able to be a part of his birthday. And it worked out perfectly. Like, he went to bed, I tucked him in, and then like a couple hours later I went, and it was great. The babies are always so generous. And there's like this level of like angst the whole day, where I'm like, oh God, I could get called, I could get called, I could get called. So wouldn't it be great if like every week you had days where you're like, well, I'm just going to plan out my day off and I don't even have to worry about it, or like so-and-so's coming into town and I've got 3 days I can dedicate to them, just like, such freedom. Versus, I think, like,
too, there's like a fine line, maybe not so fine, between it being beneficial for us, like having days that we can plan our kids' birthday parties or go away for the weekend. But also I feel like for families, for clients, as I have gotten older and practiced more, it's like I can feel at least for me personally, there's like the edge of how many clients I can take and still practice in a way that feels good to me. Like, as far as my energy level and I don't know, I'm human, and after 3 days at a birth, like, I'm not the same midwife that I am after a day. And we've talked about this before. And I think there's more and more midwives and like mentality in the community of saying that out loud. Like, I don't want to burn out and be completely exhausted and bitter and like, so when you have a small group of midwives there to serve you, whether it's 2 or 3, and I don't know, I feel like the care that we're going to provide people is better, is more present, is more rested.
Yeah. Someone who can come in and like with fresh energy and fresh eyes.
Right. And you don't want to have a practice of 10 midwives and you have no idea who you're going to be with. That doesn't feel good. And like, maybe you've never met them. But having, I don't know if it's really healthy to have one person that you are expecting to be solely on call for you and solely the only person at your birth. But I mean, that's a beautiful idea, but at the same time, we have to be able to support ourselves and our families, and having one family due in a window of being on call is just not feasible.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like, Leah, you were talking about yesterday, just kind of that piece of that you and Sophia are kind of like the tail end of definitely a certain generation of midwifery, certain mentality of like, just like a hazing model, which I think we've touched on a lot before in the podcast, but just this idea that you really could build a new model, because in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm making this calendar and I'm like, what's the catch? Like, and in my mind, the catch is that we stop as midwives kind of centering ourselves in the care experience. And I think that is a really fine line too, because obviously there's a tremendous value in having an like deeply intimate bond with your clients with one person. And it's just, the client midwife bond. But in some ways, like, if you have a community of midwives like the one that we're aiming to create, where we do skills together, we have all the same protocols for the most part, we all trust each other in these certain ways that like we can fill in for each other, and it really doesn't make that big of a difference for clients. And I think that sometimes as solo home birth midwives, we feed into a story about like how much we matter and how much us being there matters. And like, I would never, don't worry, I would never not be there, because that would be like the worst thing possible. Like, and so it puts us in the situation where, it's just not very sustainable for us. And I think that that's kind of what Amber was getting at when we all spoke, was that, you know, as midwives, we don't have the same institutional support that midwives in the hospital have or doctors in the hospital have. And we're constantly trying to be like, I can do everything. I'll be the best midwife for you. I'll fill all the roles, and just kind of exhausting.
Yeah, and I think it sets up families for disappointment too, because things happen. And I don't know, I feel like I know we were talking about this. When I've worked with some families who had chosen a midwife previously for their previous births, and you know, they sort of will explain why they decided to work with somebody else. And it, you know, sometimes what it sounds like to me is that the midwife made promises or put forth like a type of care they were going to provide that is really hard to do. And sometimes it does work out that way, but sometimes I feel like we're setting families up for an expectation of like, I don't know, something like it, in the end, it ends up being a disappointment for them for something that isn't necessarily within the midwife's control. And I'm not trying to blame clients, but I see that happen. So trying to find a way for them to still feel really held. And I don't want to be part of a practice of tons and tons of midwives. I think there's plenty of families to go around, but the idea of being in a practice with 2 or 3 it feels like it's doable to still provide families with that close care, you know, with that like continuity. But if we had more births and someone needed to fill in, we also know that all of us have the same skill level and more or less operate the same.
I have to
Leah,
know Clover. Oh, sorry, Chelsea, you go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, mine is way off topic. I wanted to know how Clover's jar of mayonnaise was that she just consumed.
Oh, mayonnaise.
Oh, wow. That's what that is mayonnaise?
No, it's not mayonnaise. It's not mayonnaise. I was eating.
So I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. So please explain.
I was eating whipped cream and blueberries, homemade whipped cream, you guys.
Oh, that's way better.
Gosh. And I was having
acceptable.
tea, like a lovely evening snack. Like the
Okay, go ahead,
I am.
Chelsea, please.
Please, let's get that out of our mind. Okay. Leah, that what you were speaking to reminds me of a particular situation. So we've talked about before, I participated in a rotating group practice in some of my past experience. And there was a time where they switched on call, like in the middle of a birth. And this particular family so part of the deal with signing up with the group was you don't really get to pick who's going to be there. It just depends on where the rotation comes when your due date or when your actual birth is taking place. And the couple had the sense that they were like, well, they were really leaning towards one midwife, like really hoping that they were the ones and like not the other ones. And not that they disliked the other ones, but they just felt so. In their actual experience, they had ended up having both, like 2 of the ones that were on rotation at that time. And it ended up being better. Like, I walked away from that experience feeling like, oh, there is also a trust, and like what's supposed to happen will happen, which really is the truth of birth and life and all of it, that they really wanted. They were attached to the one that they had in the beginning, and then the phone switched. And so another midwife came that they quote unquote didn't really want, but that particular midwife had certain experience and use certain tools that the other one didn't, just by
Mhm.
happenstance. And that's what was needed 4 hours later, that pushed the labor into them delivering their baby.
Mm-hmm.
And had they actually gotten what they thought they wanted, other things may have happened.
Right.
And so there's what you were saying, Clover, of Kate, we're going to be everything, and we're going to be the one. My whole family is going to orient around like you needing me to be there as your midwife, and no one else will work, which it can definitely feel like that in the moment of your intense birth experience, but also leaving the space that maybe there are other gifts that are appropriate to come in as well. There's the one side of the midwives leading a sustainable life, and then there's also the family's trust in the midwifery community, specifically the group practice that they're signing up for.
Yeah. And it's amazing. We mentioned before what the like fresh energy will do, because I'll, for Leah's clients, I'll meet them once at the birth team meeting. And then I come in, after a few days of labor, and later they're like, oh, like your energy in that moment, like at the very end, when everyone was just like dying, so exhausted, was really needed and necessary.
Yeah.
And it's not like I had 9 months to build relationship with them, it was just like the right energy at the right time.
Yeah, and I wonder if it like creates space for clients to take more responsibility for their own experience than having someone else, like a figure in their mind who's like who kind of rides in and is a hero. Like, I don't think that any of our clients necessarily actually consciously think that, but I think a lot of us in moments of struggle and like high pressure situations end up like looking to an external source. So I wonder if there's a way that even just the way that we talk about a group practice with our clients could reinforce like the truth that they are the authority in their experience, and that we're there to support them. And, it really doesn't matter all that much if it's Leah or Sophia, because
yeah. Well, and that's why I think it can work, Sophia. Why we're even considering it is because we both have that view also.
Yeah. And like
we shouldn't be the reason that your birth goes well or not. I mean, obviously we're there to support you and all of that, but
yeah. And like we're attending prenatals with the three of us, Clover and Chelsea. And so it's like they are getting to know 3 different women theoretically at the same time. And it would be pretty similar to that. They would just be seeing Leah 1 month and me another, so it's just like getting to know a bunch of women who are going to love on them and care for them, and they would know us just as well as the other,
Well, and I would love to hear people's thoughts too, if people want to comment or, what you were saying, Chelsea, reminded me of the birth center that I worked at before I had my own practice, in that we had on-call days, but also they were like shifts, like it rolled over into your day, like you went to the birth and the other midwife left, which is different than I'm on call, so I start this birth and I stay until the end. It's like, just, like if you're at a birth for certain, and we talked about this a little bit, Sophia, like if you're at a birth for say 24 hours, the other midwife will come and spell you so that you're not at a birth for days and days. And, I see pluses and minuses to it. I'm not, necessarily, I saw good things about it, and I saw things that I was like, it's not ideal. But I think it's something we'll talk about on our drive to the workshop. But just that idea of, and we talked about this. I had a doula collective before I was a midwife, and it was just me and one other doula. And we sort of had this idea of having more people join us, but then I was in school and kind of moved forward with that. She stopped doing birth work. But we had 12-hour shifts, I think, or 18 hours. They weren't super long now, it feels like, but at the time we had little kids. But it was like the way we talked about it with clients, and it really did work this way, was like, at the end of that time, you have this fresh energy, you have new ideas, and you have someone who you've met and you feel comfortable with, but you're not, I don't know, it just worked. And but if the birth was like imminent, that doula would stay. Like if someone was pushing, and sometimes even the other doula would come and you have two doulas there. This is obviously way pre-COVID. But it was just like, the person who's been there with you will stay, but then you also have the other person. And it just always worked out. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt, that worked and that felt good. So there's a part of me that's like, oh, that would be great. Just to know that you're not going to be at a birth for 3-4 days. But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I just took a class where we were talking all about long labors, and there was a panel of like 6 midwives who came and talked, and they were just really hammering home that we don't like to talk about it, but it's like at a certain point our clinical judgment just actually suffers from up so long, and that we can't pretend that we're the same midwife after 2 days of being awake than we are when we first started, and that there's so much research to support what happens when doctors are underslept or nurses are underslept, and it applies to us as well. And that there are serious complications and bad outcomes that can happen when you aren't fully rested. And sometimes it's really hard to make that call. Like, I think that people who are in solo practice, there's hypothetically this idea that if you were really exhausted, you would call in some backup, but it's so rare that I actually hear that actually happens. So it's nice to have that built in, that there are people who can come,
Yeah, because it becomes a financial decision. You've invested how many days, and then it would cost you how, like a couple thousand, to like call back up. You're like, oh, yeah. And I think too, you could make, poor decisions, like morally, even, if you're like, I need this to be done. We all need this to be done. Versus if you came in with fresh energy, and then you could be the rally, that everyone needs, versus the like, we did our best kind of thing.
Well, and I just had the thought too of sort of tying together what we were talking about a little bit about the new model of midwifery education, and just practicing and trying to create community and sisterhood and supporting students to become midwives and supporting each other as midwives. But I think there's this older idea of kind of like going at it alone, and scarcity mentality, just from, midwives have been persecuted forever, right? So I think there's a part of us that are like, I have to do this by myself, and no one else can take care of my clients, and all of that. And so the idea of having someone come in and take over for you and sharing your practice and all of that kind of goes against, I think, the conditioning we've had, I don't know, for the last however long. So
yeah. And I know when I was having preterm labor at like 30 weeks with Grace, my home birth midwife suggested that I start getting care at the Women's Health and Birth Center, because if I had preterm labor, they could continue care for me at the hospital, whereas she could not, and that could be beneficial for me. And I was like, I think that's a great idea. So I did get like established. I didn't do regular visits, but I got established there, and went into labor, at 35 weeks, and did go to the hospital. And so a midwife who was on staff at the birth center met me there, as well as my home birth midwife. And they were both wonderful, but it was so beneficial to have that midwife be seen as a peer, with the hospital staff. Like, they just spoke to her way differently. What she said held more weight than what my home birth midwife said. And she was just such a great advocate for me. And they really like listened to her, when they were just like badgering me about the C-section. And she would go out and be like, I think she doesn't need any more information, she doesn't need any more education on this. And I think she's ready to just sign, against advice. And they were like, okay. Whereas we had been saying that for hours,
Yeah.
So even though I didn't have any real relationship with her, because I only was seen at the birth center once and it was not with her, she was like super important to my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like kind of tying into that abundance stuff that we were talking about yesterday at the women's circle. It's like group practice is like the foundation is abundance, like that there's enough for everybody and that you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah. I mean, what is it in Sonoma County? Are we at like 1% or 3% or something home births? I think less than 1%. Yeah. And so like, if we even just went up to like 4%, how many births that would be? Like, we need more midwives. There's plenty, because the more midwives we have, the more families are going to know about it. And yeah, it'll just keep getting bigger and bigger. There's no way we could keep up. There's no way we could keep up if it keeps growing. So we have to keep training more midwives. Yeah.
Yeah. Put it out there.
Yeah.
Wahoo!
Yeah. Well, ladies, I got to take care of my tweens.
Go do it.
So everybody,
good luck.
This will have already passed
Thank
by
you.
the time we launch this podcast, but for you three on here, the meteor showers tonight. So just a reminder, I know Clover will have been in bed for hours by the time it happens, but at 10 p.m. tonight, it's either supposed to be just your typical meteor shower, which is cool, or like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds potentially. So it's
I'll be pumping, so I'll stop and I'll run outside.
10 p.m. Well, you go outside at 10 p.m. Yeah, it's not happening. I'm gonna tuck myself to bed right after. 8:45 for reference for listeners.
Night, night. Okay, ladies.
Bye.
Love you much. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks everybody for listening. You can find us at Born Wild Podcast on Instagram. For inquiries or feedback, you can email us at bornwildpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me, Emma Ray, on Instagram at Emma Ray, REA. Sophia at sophiabirth.com.
And me, Leah, at Bay Area Home Birth.
We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps us reach more people. And as always, stay wild.